Welcome to Healing Your Family Legacy, here on the Experience of the Soul podcast channel. Innovative, evidence-based recovery that helps to identify intergenerational trauma, allowing for freedom and embracement of the healing process. Today, episode 71, Process Addiction, Part 2. And now your host, Dr. Donna Bevan-Lee.
Hello, I'm Dr. Donna Bevan-Lee, helping you heal your family legacy. Welcome back to Process Addictions. Today, I'm going to try and talk about the rest of these. I don't know if I'll get through them all because there are many. But like process addictions, I'll bet by the time I'm done with this, every single person will identify with one of these things. So remember, I tend to talk about every single thing, and it doesn't mean that you got to run to your therapist or, but it could be a red flag that you'd say, I better kind of check myself on this. The next one I want to talk about is debting spending. So debting spending addiction is when you go into debt and you've got all this debt that you're packing around all the time and you can't seem to get out of. And of course, that means you're spending money. Now, there are debting spending behaviors where, say, a person orders a bunch of clothes online, say thousands of dollars or hundreds of dollars of clothes online. It comes to them, they try them all on, they get really high and excited over this, and then they start sending them back because, well, the high is gone. It's like there has to be a high with all these addictions, or it doesn't work anyway. It doesn't become an addiction. Why would you continue to do something that has harmful consequences on a regular basis unless it was an addiction? You don't. That's what an addiction is. It's behaving in the same way over and over again in spite of harmful consequences. So if you have major credit card debt, if you owe people all over the place and you can't pay it back, if you have 3 cars where you're spending, you have 3 car payments that are, costing you more than what you bring home in a week or a month, you probably have a problem. And you might want to take a look at that. Now, like I said last week, all addictions have 12-step programs. All addictions said, gee, this AA program works pretty well. And it still does. More people are sober in AA than any other program in the world. Okay? And so people have noticed this. And they say, oh, well, here's something that we tend to lose our control over. So let's do that. And they all have their own big books. They all have their own programs. And debting spending program, the DA is what it's called, is that, you have a small group of people who help you make decisions about what you're going to buy by looking at, okay, what's your budget? They help you with creating a budget if you can't. What's your budget? Is this in your budget? Do you have enough money to cover this? Will it take away from your basic needs that you need every day or your children's needs? You see what I mean? And then if you have, gambling attached to that, which, can be part of that, is that then you'll go to GA, Gamblers Anonymous. Those are kind of closely related, but not necessarily. Even though if you're buying massive amounts of whatever and running yourself into debt, it's almost the same thing as having a gambling addiction because you keep spending money that you don't have to try and figure out a way to cover or get back. Now, DA for debting and spending addiction. And I know that this, increased mightily over the course of the pandemic. In this country, we do it anyway. I mean, whether there's a pandemic or not, because we can buy all kinds of things sitting in our house online. Kind of like there are more porn addicts now because we can sit in our house, open our computer, and then we can act out. So, a lot of this you can kind of see where there's a thread here. Before the internet, you'd have to actually go to the store, buy massive quantities of clothing, and then when you got up to pay for it, people might say, we've got $10,000 worth of clothes here, or we've got $1,000 worth of clothes here, and at least give you an idea of what was going on. With the internet, you just click, 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 and then you've got it. Okay? So with spending and debting, there is DA, Debtors Anonymous, and if you have this problem, I would strongly suggest you check that 12-step program out. There are also other programs. If you go on debting, spending problems on the internet, you can find them. Also, with almost any addiction treatment facility, you can get treatment for any of these addictions. Not all of them will deal with all the addictions, all the process addictions, but most of them will. The next one I want to talk about, which is a really big problem. I almost said huge, and that would be an interesting way to put it. But eating disorders. Eating disorders are addictions, no matter how you put that. So eating disorders can be, there's 3 basic kinds and maybe more at this point, but there is anorexia. And with anorexia, you stop eating, okay? Or you only eat certain foods that have no real nutritional value, or you think has all nutritional value. I've worked with people who would actually sit down and eat a huge plate just of broccoli. And so I think, it's like you're anorexic. You're not eating. You're not eating what you need to be. I have a plate, a mound with mounds of broccoli. It's like, yeah, well, you need more than broccoli in order to sustain your body. And one of the things that people have to do when they're in recovery for anorexia is they have to start, and any other eating disorder really, is that they start realizing that their body needs fuel to run. And that fuel consists of getting all the nutrients you need, and you're not going to get them all from broccoli. You're not going to get them all from eating air-popped popcorn. You're not going to get them all from eating just carrots. With just carrots, I saw, a guy came in to me, because men have these disorders too. And he said that his doctor had suggested that he seek therapy because the only thing he ate were carrots. And in his mind, that was enough. And it was the strangest thing, because when he walked in, I almost fainted. He was bright orange. Guess what? If you overeat carrots, you get to be orange. Anyway, so I have seen people die of anorexia. Karen Carpenter died of anorexia. They say she died of a heart attack, but guess what? She was a very young woman, and if you saw pictures of her in her later life, she was as thin as a rail. And I see anorexics everywhere. I see people who have anorexia who are all ages. When I'm out on the trail, sometimes I will see somebody that is literally skin and bone. Literally. And they're out exercising. Well, how long do you think your heart's going to hold up under that? Not long. It's a serious disorder. People die of this at all ages and all genders. Now, here's a tricky thing about anorexia. It's that when you reach a certain weight, which is like your body's not getting what it needs, okay? The broccoli every day, all day is not going to do it. Your body's not getting what it needs. It's not getting calcium. It's not getting potassium. It's not getting it's not getting the fat it needs. We need fat on our body. Okay? If this happens, your body starts to eat itself. Okay? So your body, if it's still running, needs to get fuel from somewhere. So it starts to take away fuel. First of all, you lose all your fat. All right. And then the next thing is that you start to have muscle breakdown. And that's another illness altogether. Because when you have muscle breakdown, your body isn't working right and you'll die from that. Okay. So these are things, and what happens when your body starts to eat itself, that's what I call it. So you get high. Remember? I said, unless there's a high, there's not an addiction, because you don't keep doing it. I've had many people who have this eating disorder of anorexia come in. I don't know what the problem is. I've never felt better. I feel great. I can exercise all day long and not get tired. It's because their body's breaking down and they're getting high off that because of chemical reactions. I know they're going to die soon. And trying to get somebody who feels great to realize they have a serious problem that's going to kill them soon is very difficult. Okay? So there is, even on the internet, you can go and say, what is a BMI in order for a person to have anorexia? Because it says right there, if you want to know. Then there's a thing we call bulexia. Bulexia is a combination of eating disorders. Okay? People who have bulexia, they eat and then they find ways to get rid of what they just ate. And some people become bulimic, which is they eat and then they go throw up. And they could do this too with anorexia, but there's a process of bulimia where they eat, they go throw up. They eat some more, they go throw up. And this really wreaks havoc on your esophagus, by the way. And I've known people who have had severe bulimia, and as they get older in their life, they bleed from their esophagus. It's a terrible disease, and they can't stop. And here's where the high is that there are chemicals that get released into your system that makes you feel high. Makes you feel like you're the greatest in the world. And if you can keep your weight managed, with most people, it doesn't help your weight, okay? If you have anorexia, it helps you have nothing there for yourself. But here's some other interesting things. Most people don't realize this, but exercise is a form of bulimia. And if you find yourself saying, well, I ate that piece of cake, so I'm going to have to exercise an extra hour tomorrow, you might want to look at that. It's called bulexia. Because now you're putting food into your body. Remember, this is gas for your soul, okay? It's like your body needs fuel. So you're putting the fuel in, and then you're doing everything you can to get it out as soon as possible so that you think that you're not going to get fat, because that's the whole point. And, I've seen people, I think I had this going on when I was younger, when I was running marathons. Who does that? I mean, who runs marathons on a regular basis? Unless somebody's bulexia. Because guess what? You cannot get fat if you're running marathons all the time. That's extreme. It's extreme behavior. And guess what? For a marathoner, running through the wall is a high. Man, I got to tell you, I'd hit the wall at about 17 to 20 miles, depending on God knows what. But when marathoners talk about hitting the wall, or even half marathoners hit the wall, there is a place where all of a sudden your body is completely deleted. It can't, there's no fuel left. Everything you ate, all that spaghetti yesterday you ate for this marathon is gone. It's called the wall. Everybody who, you might not, even if you don't run marathons, you might have heard about this wall. And if you keep running, that period there that feels like you're going to die, and sometimes you might, but that you feel like you're going to die, and then all of a sudden, you feel great. That's when your body's starting to eat itself again. Okay? That's the high. And I remember the first time I hit that wall, I thought, oh my God, what is this? I'm dying here. But I kept going because I am not a quitter. I kept going. And then when I got through the wall, I felt higher than a kite. I felt like my feet weren't even touching the ground for the rest of that race. And I still had 6 miles to go. That's the high. Okay? That's part of what is bulexia. And, talk about not having a piece of fat around. Okay? That's what that is. And I was worried about being fat my whole life. Because, I was female in this culture. And if you're female in this culture, it is on your mind. Unfortunately, I've noticed that they've started to, maybe thanks to Lizzo and some other people, they've started to say, hey, you know what? If you've got weight issues, you don't need to be shamed for that. And maybe you just need to learn to live with it. I don't think that's a good way to go. We'll call that overeating. Okay, now I know people who've said, I don't know why I've gained 50 pounds. I don't overeat. Well, yes, you do. Now, you may be eating the wrong foods. Maybe you're eating bigger portions. Maybe you're not exercising at all. But you have to think of your body as is it a Maserati or is it a clunker? If it's a Maserati, you are not going to put sugar in the the gas tank, okay? You want to put real fuel in the gas tank. And if you do, your body's more likely to run like a Maserati versus a clunker. Now, they both might get you where you want to go. Most of the time, the clunker is going to stop working at some point. And the Maserati will too. Nothing goes on forever. But on the way there, you feel better. And you probably aren't going to feel, there's less likelihood that you're going to develop all those illnesses that go along with being overweight. And again, you can go online or ask your doctor. It's easy to figure out what your BMI is. It's online. It's easy to do. And it tells you, okay, this is a danger zone. So I know people that are overweight that are not concerned about it. And they tell me, I'm not concerned about it. And I say, well, how's your back doing? Well, I've got bad back, and I've got back knees, and I've got bad ankles, and I've got bad feet. And it's like, well, can you stand at, say, your grandchild's wedding? Oh, no, I'd have to sit there. So these are negative, harmful consequences. And how about, now I have type 2 diabetes, and now I've got, heart issues. Our bodies aren't designed to carry extra weight. That kind of extra weight, where you're suffering consequences. And for women, it's like if you've ever been pregnant, you know that it's like your feet start to swell, your knees hurt, your ankles hurt, your back hurts, all those things. Then you give birth, and then a little while later, if you do all the right stuff, you get your body back, and it feels a lot better. So, but here's the deal. When you're overeating, you're probably eating things that get you high. Sugar gets you high. Or you're celebrating all the time. So then you're eating more, or you're eating higher caloric foods. These are, you don't like get overweight and you don't become an overeater unless you do it over and over again in spite of harmful consequences. You don't get this disease by eating a hot fudge sundae. You get it by eating the biggest hot fudge sundae you can find every night. So these are all disorders, and there are treatments for them. There are treatment facilities that are designed to just deal with eating disorders. And guess what? There are 12-step programs for all of them. There's Overeaters Anonymous. There's Anorexics Anonymous. There are Bulimics Anonymous. If you can't go to treatment, you can go to a 12-step program. It's free. And people there are being successful. There are many programs for overeating that are really low cost and like Weight Watchers. That doesn't cost you an arm and a leg. Some of them do. There's some that have your meals prepared. It's like Jenny Craig, Nutrisystem. These might cost more, but this is not a dress rehearsal, and you need to take care of your body if you want it to go the distance, because you won't go the distance if you don't. Now, I don't think shaming a person for an eating disorder helps. Just like I've never seen it work. Shaming a person for driving drunk. Shaming a person for having any kind of addiction. It doesn't work. Recognizing that it's an illness. And, people get called out for what we call fat shaming. But as a therapist, I've had people come to my office who obviously are overeating or who have anorexia. It's hard to gauge with the bulexia because you have to know a person for a while to know if they're doing that. But those two, I can see it. And when they'd come in my office, I'd sit down and I'd say, and they'd start telling me, because I always ask, what can I help you with? And they start telling me all their things. But before the end of the session, I would always say, so, have you tried to deal with your eating disorder yet? Here's the fact. Eating disorders are a result of childhood trauma. And remember, it's not just parents. It can be many people. Okay? But people don't overeat or undereat or have bulexia because the sun came up that morning. And it's a process addiction. And it's an addiction that you can't just stop and never do. So you can't abstain from these things. You have to relearn how to eat appropriately. You have to think about it. It's not going to be second nature. You have to think about it. Let's see, how many hot fudge sundaes have I had in the last month? I've had 3. Well, I think that's enough. So, but there's help. There's treatment. Now, I've also had people, and, I might have mentioned this before, have come in and asked me, well, if I deal with my underlying childhood trauma, then I'll stop drinking too much, or maybe my eating disorder. Well, no. You have to deal with your addictions first. That's why you're in your addiction in the first place, is that all addictions have childhood trauma as a basis. And until you get rid of those addictions or get them managed and process addictions, it's like if you start dealing with your childhood trauma, you're just going to do it more and more and more. So getting in recovery from your addictions, getting help for your addictions, and then feeling like you've got some kind of management, then when you start dealing with your childhood trauma, you won't go to that in order to feel better. All right? So now I'm going to talk a little bit more about the gambling addiction. Talk about high. I'm an addict, okay? We all know this. In fact, tomorrow I'll have 44 years in AA, in recovery. It's kind of a long time. I would tell you that because my brain, remember, addictions happen in your brain gets lit up like a Christmas tree. It wants more and more and more. And so, I remember being in a casino and winning money, playing a game that I enjoy. And when I walked out of there, I walked out with my money. When I walked out of there, I felt like I had been drinking for days, and I hadn't drank in years. But I wasn't really a gambler. I had money to do that with. But when I stopped drinking, got better, started making money, doing all the things that I was doing. And then some friends, let's go, do this. And so I did, and I won. And boy, talk about a high. But see, I knew, I was like, okay, I know this feeling. So I don't need to do that anymore. And I didn't. And I won't. I didn't need to go to Gamblers Anonymous for that, because by then I had enough knowledge about addiction to know what it was. Now, I'm going to tell you some of the other addictions that I'm going to talk about next time that I haven't been able to talk about yet, and that is work, video games, fantasy addictions, people addiction, religious addiction, that's a big one, TV addiction. Okay, those are some of the ones that I haven't talked about yet that I am going to talk about next week. And they might be really interesting, especially, the idea of a religious addiction. That might get people listening and maybe even a little bit stirred up, and that's okay. Because you know what? People, if you feel like you're getting stirred up, it's just an indication that maybe I might want to look at this a little bit. Because if you're not stirred, if I talk about something and you're going, oh, well, that's really interesting, but you're not stirred up, you're probably fine with it. So, until next time, where we'll start off with work addiction. Take care.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Healing Your Family Legacy here on the Experience of the Soul podcast channel. This channel is made possible because of listeners just like you. If you would like to support the channel with your tax-deductible contribution on an ongoing basis or through a one-time gift, head over to experienceofthesoul.com/support. Healing Your Family Legacy is copyright 2022, Dr. Donna Bevan-Lee, all rights reserved. Our theme music is composed by Dave Croft and used with permission. The Experience of the Soul podcast channel is a production of 818 Studios.
Hey friends, Sean here, your Experience of the Soul producer. I want to take a moment to tell you about something truly exciting. The Soulworks online community, created by your host, Cynthia Alice Anderson, and available on the Mighty Networks app. If you're looking for a place where you can explore your spiritual path, connect with others, and grow in a meaningful way, then this is for you. Soulworks is so much more than an online community. It's a safe, inclusive space for spiritual exploration, self-discovery, and personal transformation. Inside the community, you'll find everything from uplifting spiritual studies to soul-centered growth practices, meditations, affirmations, and so much more. It's a space where you'll always be supported and never judged. The best part, membership is free. You'll have access to powerful resources, inspiring content, and a supportive group of like-minded people who are all on their own unique spiritual journeys. And if you're ready to dive deeper, there are premium options available to enhance your experience with a live Monday night talk series and extended, deeper meditations. If you're seeking a place to connect, grow, and nurture your soul, We would love to have you join us in the SoulWorks community and see where this journey can take you. Visit my.soulworkscommunity.com today.